Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Jumping straight into the EU and Apple are still going at it with each other. The European Union has implemented new regulation that will disallow Apple from limiting charging speed of USB Type-C devices. This is due to concern that Apple was going to use their technology that they've used with their Lightning connectors for made for iPhone and take that and use it to USB-C as well, so that you'd have to go through Apple's regulations, you have to pay them a little cut, make a little money for Apple, and then they'd limit you if you weren't one of those guys. But the EU has pushed back, and they've been pushing for a universal charging standard for quite a few years, trying to get everything that's going to be rechargeable to be on a Type-C charger. And this move, aligns with their broader goal of making sure that all of their charging devices in the EU will have the same solution. They'll all be Type-C. That is what they're pushing. That is what your devices will charge with over there. So there is kind of a loophole to this, and that is that it doesn't actually pertain to data transfer speeds. So they could still use it for that, but they won't be able to use it for actual charging speeds. Whatever the iPhone's supposed to charge at is what it'll have to charge at with the Type-C connector. And it might actually have to Apple might have to redesign some stuff if they were planning on limiting things like this. But they won't have that choice anymore. Based on that, is it good that the EU is enforcing things like this? I think to an extent it is. It's good to have somebody making sure that things are standardized so you don't end up with the disaster of, I have to bring 10 devices with me on this trip and I need 10 chargers. This at least pushes it all so that you can bring, one cord if you want to, one type of power brick. You don't need a ton of things. Makes it easier on the consumer to know what to buy. What'll have to happen is these USB Type-C connectors will have to have some way of getting approved, because otherwise people do funky things with chargers to make data speeds different, to make charging speeds different. And there's no good way of knowing for sure. So they'll have to find a way to make sure that people buying these products will know that they're getting a good one if they're going to force it to all be one. But on the other hand, I think this is also a bad thing at the same time. I think it does hinder some innovation to an extent, because if they're pushing one type of connector and one standard for everything, what if a better one comes along? What's the point of making a better one if you can't use it anyways in most of the world? So there's pros and cons to this. It goes both ways. But at least, Apple's entire rest of their lineup is Type-C. Apple was actually one of the early investors in Type-C. Then they went to Lightning because Type-C was going to take too long, and now they refuse to go to Type-C. And Apple keeps using the environment as an excuse, like, we have to stay with Lightning. There's so many things built for Lightning. But you switched off a 30-pin, and at some point you're going to have to switch anyways. Maybe you even go full wireless charging. And if you go full wireless charging, people are going to throw away all their Lightning stuff anyways. So is there really that big of a difference here? It just seems like hesitation on Apple's end for the most part to not want to push forward and put Type-C on their stupid phone when they can make money off of the Lightning connector still.